Hello and welcome back to math class. Excuse my C and O in my welcome. I'm one of those teachers who prints and combines cursive together. I need to get that straightened out, don't I? So yesterday we talked a little bit about absolute value and how far numbers, integers were away from zero. We got to do a little color here on my book. And then we filled this in. And what I asked you guys to do is I asked you guys to look at these rational numbers and put them into some circles. As you can see, I'm trying to hide them from you. You were supposed to put the negatives in one circle and the positives in the other. This is what mine looks like. So my negative rational numbers were in here. I had 6 of them. And then I had, looks like 5 of them were in the positive circle. Obviously, 0 is in the middle between negatives and positives. And then I asked you to look at these and give me their absolute values. So remember, absolute value is always positive, and absolute value also tells me how far a number is away from 0. How far is negative 6 from 0? It's 6. So if you want to look, this is what I have for my circles. If you notice, my positive numbers, their absolute values are exactly the same. And my negative rational numbers, their absolute values are the opposites. They are positives because remember, absolute value is always positive. Okay, so you can see I took a blue marker here and I circled the absolute values here of our negative rational numbers. I would like for you to take these new values and I would like for you to look inside your book, and right here in this box I would like for you to put those numbers in order from least to greatest. So you're going to take these numbers and put them in order from least to greatest. I will put my screen down like this so you can look at the numbers. Go ahead and pause your video so that you can put them in order from least to greatest. Okay, so this is going to be good practice for us. Here we go. Let's see how you did. I have 1 5/10 as my smallest value, and I went from 4 to 4 1/2, 6, 6 3/10, 9 1/4. Least to greatest. Okay, you're going to pause your video again, and this time you're going to take these values and put them in order from least to greatest inside this box. Okay, here are the values, so you don't have to keep flipping your book back and forth, and put those in order from least to greatest. Pause your video so you have time to do that. Okay, so let's look to see how you did with the absolute values, or their positive numbers, in order from least to greatest. You should have, your smallest number should have been 25 hundredths. Remember, I think in terms of money, that's a quarter. 2 1/10, 2 3/4, 3 9/10, 3 99 hundredths. So I've gone in order from least to greatest. We're getting a lot of practice with that. Okay, now we're going to move down here. I used the orange color. We're going to go from least to greatest. This time I want you to look at the negative rational numbers. Which negative rational number is the smallest? Put it in order from least to greatest inside this box right here. Pause your video so you can use those numbers. You may begin. Okay, so let's see how you did. Remember, the larger the number it is, the smaller or the farther away it is from 0. So the smallest number we had here was negative 9 1/4. Then it went to negative 6 3/10, negative 6, negative 4 1/2, negative 4, and then negative 1 5/10. We're getting closer to 0. Obviously, I bet you probably know what we're going to put in this last circle here. We're going to put in order from least to greatest. We are going to use these numbers right here. They look very similar. Pause your video, please, and use these numbers to put inside that box. All right, well, let's look to see how we did. Interesting. They are exactly in the same order that the absolute values are. So, just like we learned earlier, if we have rational numbers and we look at their absolute value, if we put them in order from least to greatest, positive numbers have the same order with their absolute values. If I looked at the negative rational numbers we had, when I looked at them and I put them in order from least to greatest, and then I looked at their absolute values, you will notice that the absolute values go in the opposite direction. Okay? All right, so right here it says order the whole given set of rational numbers from least to greatest. So we're going to look at all of these numbers from -9 1/4. We're going to include 0 and go all the way to 3 and 99 hundredths. We're going to see if we can fit all of those numbers in the box right there. Go ahead and pause your video so that you can do that. Okay, so as you can see, I took my negative numbers. They were already in order from least to greatest, and then I added my 0, and then we went from positive numbers. So we have all the way from -9 1/4 all the way to 0 and continuing up to 3 and 99 hundredths. Okay, very good. All right, let's go down to exercise 2. Exercise 2 says to find a set of 4 integers. Remember, an integer is a positive or negative number, such that their order and the order of their absolute values is the same. There's that key word, same. Well, if I recall up here, if I want them to be in the same order, I have to think of 4 positive integers. Let's do the numbers 7 and 10, 14, and 21. Okay, there's my 4 integers. They are in order from least to greatest. If I would ask you to find their absolute value, how far is 7 away from 7? I'm sorry, how far is 7 away from 0 on the number line? Well, the absolute value would be 7. How far is 10 away from 0? It's 10 places away. How far is 14 away from 0? 14. And how far is 21 away from 0? It's 21. So if you notice, I'm going to write here absolute value. You will notice that the absolute value of these positive numbers continues in the same order, going from least to greatest. Well, let's go down to part B, and it says find a set of 4 integers that their order and the order of their absolute values are opposite. Well, we learned up here at the top of our page that opposite means we need to look at negative integers. So if I think about a number line, let's start all the way here at -10. Okay, so as I'm getting closer to 0, I'd go -9, -8, -7. So I'm going in least to greatest order, getting closer and closer to 0. This is my smallest number. This is my largest number. If I asked you to tell me about there, and let's just put here for absolute value, how far is -10 away from 0? 10 places. How far is -9 away from 0? 9 places. How far is -8 from 0? Well, 8 places. How far is -7 from 0? 7. Now, if you look, though, look at the absolute values. The absolute values are not going in increasing order. They're going backwards. So if I would want to take these numbers and put them in order from least to greatest, I would have to turn them around to be 7, 8, 9, and 10. So if you notice, I had to basically flip and do the opposite with the original integer and then looking at its absolute value. Okay, let's go down to problem C. Problem C says to find a set of 4 non-integer rational numbers such that their order and the order of their absolute value is the same. So non-integer means I can't just have a whole number like you and I would see here. I need to have it as a fraction. So if I gave you the number 2 1/2, mixed number 2 1/2, and how about 3 1/2, 4 1/2, and 5 1/2. If you look at these numbers, rational numbers, they are going in order from least to greatest. Let's look at their absolute values. How far is 2 1/2 away from 0? 2 1/2. How far is 3 1/2 away from 0? 3 1/2. 4 1/2 is obviously 4 1/2 places away from 0. And 5 1/2 is obviously 5 1/2 places from 0. So here's their absolute values. Look at this. They are in the same order. Let's look what D says. D says find a set of 4 non-integer rational numbers such that their order and the order of their absolute values are opposite. Well, we learned earlier that we need to have negative integers. I'm going to take these numbers right here, and I'm going to make them negative. So negative 5.5 is farther away from 0 than negative 4.5, negative 3.5, and we'll do negative 2.5. This number is the smallest. Okay, this is a small. So think about this in terms of would it be better to owe somebody $5 or $2? $2 would be better. So negative 5 is worse, so it's the smallest number. It is farther away from our 0 over here. Okay, well, once we look at absolute value, I'm going to do AV here for absolute value. What is the absolute value of negative 5.5? 5.5. How far is negative 4.5 away from 0? Well, it's 4.5 places. Remember, absolute value is always positive. How far is 3.5 away from 0? 3.5 places. How far is 2.5 away from 0? 2.5 places. Well, if you notice, my negative rational numbers went from least to greatest. But when I looked at the absolute value, now I'm going from greatest to least. So it's going in the opposite direction. So in order for it to go from least to greatest, I would have to take this and turn it around. Okay, so I'm going to give you my last challenge problem here. If you notice, I kind of moved my book down. I would like for you, and if you have a color to highlight or just your pencil or whatever to do that, I want you to box some numbers for me. So for example, on part A, I want you to put a box around those 4 numbers. On part B, I want you to put a box around those 4 numbers. On part C, I want you to put a box around those 4 numbers. And on part D, I want you to put a box around those 4 rational numbers. All right, so your challenge problem, once again, we're going to keep practicing this because I know some of you need help with that. I want you to look at all 16 rational numbers that I have here, and I want you to put them in order from down here from least to greatest. Okay, I will give you the first one. The first one, negative numbers are obviously smaller than positive, so I need to look at these two. It looks like the largest negative number I have is negative 10. So I'm going to start here with negative 10, and I'm going to cross it out because I know that one's finished. Okay, see if you can do the next one. Looks like it's going to be negative 9. Some of you are going to work ahead of me, and you sure can do that. This is good practice for us. Okay, so far I have all of my negative numbers in order from least to greatest. I'm getting closer and closer to 0. Now I'm at my positive numbers. I don't have enough room, so I'm going to have to continue going down here. After negative 2.5, my first positive looks like it's going to be positive 2.5, positive 3.5, and I'm finally to my larger positive numbers up here. Okay, so once again, we're practicing putting numbers in order from least to greatest, not just integers, but also rational numbers. Okay, well, I hope you guys have a great day, and I look forward to talking to you again tomorrow.